Let's go Dolphins! The coaching staff is sending a very clear message about Malik Willis, and it's not the message many expected. While some fans are already debating wins, losses, and playoff possibilities, the people within the team seem focused on something completely different. And what they're prioritizing today could determine the franchise's direction in the coming months. But here's the question no one seems to agree on. Are the Dolphins being patient because they believe Willis is about to have a big moment, or are they protecting a quarterback who still has a long way to go? The answer might surprise you. Before revealing everything, be sure to like this if you truly believe the Dolphins are building something special for the future. And if you're optimistic about the team's future, leave this comment below right now. Go Dolphins! The best days are yet to come. Now, here's where things get interesting. According to comments discussed from the Dolphins coaching staff, the organization wants Malik Willis focused on mastering the scheme rather than trying to force himself into a leadership role right away. The coaching staff believes leadership comes naturally over time and should be earned through performance, consistency, and trust. Right now, the priority is for Willis to become the best quarterback, teammate, and player he can be within the system. That may not sound dramatic at first, but when you look deeper into it, it reveals a lot about where the Dolphins currently stand. This is a team going through significant adjustments. The practices are centered around learning new concepts, understanding different coaching methods, and building chemistry between players who are still getting familiar with one another. Even for players who are already with the team, there are changes in terminology, communication, and execution. And for a quarterback who is relatively new to the environment, that process becomes even more demanding. One of the biggest themes emerging from the OTA discussions is patience. The staff appears determined not to overload Willis with expectations. Instead of demanding immediate leadership, they want him concentrating on details. Learning where receivers like Caleb Douglas, Tua Tagovailoa, Jaylen Tolbert, Malik Washington, Taj Washington, Greg Dulcich, Ben Sims, and others prefer the football. Understanding route timing. Recognizing tendencies. Developing trust. These are the small details that often determine whether an offense operates smoothly or struggles to find rhythm. And right now, by all accounts, there are still struggles. The offense has looked rough at times during these practices. That does not automatically mean disaster is coming, but it does reinforce the reality that this group is still very early in the process. There are timing issues, route adjustments, communication details, and countless nuances that need to be refined before anyone can make a fair judgment about where this offense is headed. Another important detail emerging from the discussions is how highly coaches speak about Willis as a person. Coaches have praised his energy, his attitude, and the enthusiasm he brings around teammates. They describe him as someone who is enjoyable to coach and someone who naturally creates positive energy around him. However, there is also recognition that personality alone does not determine success on Sundays. Performance remains the ultimate measuring stick. That is where the real challenge begins. The Dolphins are essentially asking Willis to balance multiple objectives simultaneously. He must learn the scheme. He must establish chemistry with an entirely new group of targets. He must improve his understanding of timing and spacing. He must continue refining his mechanics and decision-making. And all of that has to happen while the offense is trying to find its identity under the current structure. What stands out most is that nobody inside the discussion seems ready to panic. The message remains consistent. This is a process. OTAs are not designed to provide final answers. The expectation is that growth occurs over time. There is hope that additional work between players during the break before training camp can accelerate that process and strengthen the connections necessary for offensive success. Building trust between a quarterback and his receivers does not happen overnight. It develops through repetition, communication, and countless hours of work together. At the same time, there is an acknowledgement that patience has limits. The feeling surrounding the situation is that if similar issues continue through preseason action and joint practices, concern levels would naturally rise. Early struggles are understandable. Continued struggles months later would become a much different conversation. That distinction is extremely important because it explains why the Dolphins appear willing to give Willis room to learn now while still understanding that results eventually matter. Perhaps the most fascinating part of this entire story is the debate surrounding the defense and offense during these practices. Some observers have pointed to defensive success as a sign of dominance. Others argue it is far too early to draw those conclusions because the offense is still learning and developing chemistry. The viewpoint presented is that neither side can truly be judged until joint practices and preseason games provide a more realistic test against outside competition. Until then, both optimism and concern should be approached carefully. What makes this situation even more intriguing is that the Dolphins appear to understand exactly where they are in the development cycle. Nobody inside the building seems interested in rushing Malik Willis into becoming something overnight. Instead, the focus remains on stacking good days together, improving fundamentals, and allowing the quarterback to build confidence naturally through repetition. And that is where many fans may be overlooking the biggest challenge. Learning a playbook is one thing. Learning the players around you is something completely different. A quarterback can memorize every page of the offensive system, understand every formation, and know every read on paper. But until he develops a feel for how each receiver runs routes, how quickly they separate, how they react against different coverages, and where they expect the football, the offense will continue to experience growing pains. That chemistry only comes through real practice reps. The discussion surrounding players like Caleb Douglas, Tua Tagovailoa, Jaylen Tolbert, Malik Washington, Taj Washington, Greg Dulcich, and Ben Sims highlights exactly why patience is being emphasized. Willis is not simply learning a system. He is learning the tendencies of an entire group of pass catchers. Every receiver moves differently. Every receiver attacks leverage differently. Every receiver has different timing within routes. That may sound like a small detail, but at the NFL level, those details determine whether a pass becomes a completion or sails incomplete. It is also worth noting that the coaching staff seems encouraged by Willis's attitude throughout the process. The comments coming from coaches consistently point towards someone who is engaged, energetic, and eager to learn. Those traits alone do not guarantee success, but they certainly help create an environment where improvement can happen faster. Now, this is where things start getting a little controversial among the fan base. There are already debates about the defense appearing dominant during these offseason practices. Some fans see reports of defensive success and immediately assume the Dolphins could have an elite unit. Others see offensive struggles and begin worrying about the future. The reality is probably somewhere in the middle. The argument being made is simple. It is extremely difficult to accurately judge either side of the football when they are facing the same teammates every single day. Defenders begin recognizing offensive tendencies. Offensive players begin recognizing defensive tendencies. Eventually both sides know each other so well that practice results can become misleading. That is why so much attention is being placed on upcoming joint practices and preseason games. Those situations remove familiarity. Those situations force players to react against opponents who do not know their habits. Those situations often reveal strengths and weaknesses that remain hidden during off-season sessions. And perhaps that is why there is no panic coming from those discussing the team right now. The belief appears to be that there is simply not enough information available yet to make sweeping conclusions about what this Dolphins team will become. However, there is one statement that should catch every Dolphins fan's attention. The expectation is that Malik Willis will be given opportunities to work through mistakes and continue developing. But there is also recognition that performance eventually matters. If struggles persist throughout the season and major improvements fail to materialize, future decisions could become much more complicated. The organization appears willing to be patient, but patience is not unlimited in professional football. For now, though, the message remains clear. Learn the offense, build chemistry, master the details, earn trust, become comfortable within the system. Everything else comes later. As mandatory minicamp approaches, all eyes will be on whether the offense starts showing signs of progress. Fans will be watching every report, every update, and every indication